Okay, I want to show you guys a more advanced fiber, and that fiber is the sinew, or the tendons that the Indians used to use. They used to use the tendons from buffalo, and they used to use tendons from deer, and I wasn't able to get any sinew from a buffalo, but my good friends at Max Meat, he was able to get me some from a bovine or a cow, and basically that's what these are here. And then these are tendons here from a deer, and they have a little different look to them, and the bovine has, or the cows have, a lot bigger, and so you can get a lot more sinew, a lot more fiber out of them. And this fiber is really strong. This is stronger than the grass fiber and stronger than the wood fiber, the bark. This is just a little piece here, and even though this is a little piece, I cannot break that piece at all. It's so strong. And now if that were grass or wood fiber, I could snap that, and I just can't snap this stuff. This stuff's really strong. So the Indians used to use it quite a bit, and they used to make their bowstrings out of it. They would sew they would use little pieces like this, and they would sew a lot of their clothes together with it. And it was very useful to them. So what I want to do is talk about how to actually do it. You're going to cut them out, and then you have to dry them. And when you dry them, you got to dry them to the point to where, it's how they kind of get that clear look to them in there. So, it's kind of like where it's almost see-through there. And when you dry them like that, then they're dry enough to go ahead and use them. What we have to do, though, is we have to take it when it's like this, and we got to separate those fibers. And we're going to show you how to do that. You're going to do that with some tools. Now, one of the things you're going to need is a rock. I've got a rock here that I use. And sometimes you're tempted to use two rocks because there'd be more energy there between them. But when you use two rocks and you start getting it down this small, a lot of times what'll happen is you just cut the thing in half, and that's what you don't want. You don't want to cut the fiber, you just want to separate it. And so I use a piece of wood, and this is maple here. Now the wood, when you want to use wood, you don't want the bark left on it. The bark on it is going to cushion it enough that when you hit this stuff, these things are really hard, and when you hit them, it'll just dent the bark, and then you won't get the impact that you want. So you got to strip the bark off, and then you're going to want a harder wood. This is maple here. That's pretty hard, and you might be able to see some of the dimples even in the wood from this. So I use the wood, and then I use a stone together in order to do this. And so what we're actually going to do is this is going to take a process where we're going to pound the fibers. Now there are other things that you can do, other fibers that you can get by pounding that's out there in Mother Nature. And sinew is one. Sisal is another one. If you're out there where sisal grows, you can pound that and get fibers, and those fibers are really long. Those are nice, so you can make bowstrings out of those as well. Some of your grasses like flax, the stalk part, you usually have to soak it for a couple of days and let that slightly just start to ferment a little. And then you take it out, dry it, and you pound that, and that's got a really fine fiber in it. And and those types of things you have to use a pounding technique. And so what we actually need to do is we need to take and turn this type of stuff into this type of stuff. And the way we do that is by pounding. And so this here is a piece that hasn't been hit yet, And so I'm going to demonstrate a little bit at least how to start separating these. And we'll get it into this point, and basically when you get it like this, a little bit further down, then what you're going to do is you're going to grab how much ever you need. If you're going to tie, they used to tie their fletchings on. They would glue them and tie them. If you're going to tie fletchings, you'd only need a piece about like this, and you'd pull that out of there and you'd use that. If you're going to make a bowstring or something, you'd want a little bit more, so you'd grab a little bigger piece, separate this out. You grab a little bit bigger piece and rip that out of there, and then use that, to tie string. So you basically grab the size that you're going to need, and then tear it off there. And then see, basically I could take this and go ahead and rip that right off there. Then I can use this piece here and whatever I was going to do with it. And so then I got a ready source of them. And basically these are from the cow, or it's similar to what you'd find on a buffalo. And then these are the tendons, back tendons out of the back legs, and basically you turn them into this, and then you'd be ripping off how much ever you need, tearing it off, and then using it. So I want to show you at least a little bit here on how we pound this, and I just kind of stick this in here, and then you start working on this pretty soon. Pretty soon you can start seeing where the fibers are going to start in there, start showing up. And we can start to see those fibers there. Okay, now we're just starting to the point to where I can go ahead and pull these apart and see how I do that. Now that's basically where you have to head to, is get these to separate. And so basically take the really hard stuff and you pound it and separate it into that type of stuff there. And then we get it to where this point is, to where we can take what we need. And so that's how you actually get to the fibers. Now, Sinew takes a higher level of skill, and so you want to practice with your grasses and stuff, because Sinew is a more fussy piece of fiber to work with, especially when it goes to adding stuff in. And I found that if you're going to make a string, it's difficult to get a piece added in and get it, because this is so strong by itself, to try and get your joint where you're going to add a piece in, to get that as strong as what the rest of this is pretty tough sometimes. So I find that it's easier actually to make a string using three of them instead of two. Based on the grasses and stuff, you can use two, but you're going to have the strength that you do in these. And so actually doing three strands instead of two strands, then you can add in a little easier and get a stronger joint that way. And this stuff's so strong that it's just beautiful, and that's why they used it for their bowstrings and stuff. So I did a 3-strand instead of a 2-strand, because it's easier to actually get pieces added in when it comes time. Like this time, this right here needs to add a piece in here, and so you do it the same way that you would with your grasses, only in these you really want to reef them down when you turn them in. Now on the other grasses and stuff and the other fibers, we always talked about drying them first. And you do that on purpose because when you dry them, then they shrink. And once they shrink and they get down there, then you can go ahead and twist them into cordage. But when we do that, we talked about actually wetting them first, and so that they're more pliable. And so you, you didn't want to work with them wet. With this stuff, I pretty much work with this dry most of the time because Sinew is different. You know, your grasses and stuff, you dry those, they shrink down. You wet them, and then they don't swell back up. Sinew doesn't act that way. Sinew will shrink down when it dries, but then if you wet it, then it swells back up again, and so you're back to your original too big. And if you make cordage, it's really easy to work with when it's all that. But then when it dries out again, it shrinks, and then your tightness is not there. So sometimes I do work with this a little moist, and what I do is I have a little water, and I actually just dip my fingers in the water, and then I'll just go ahead and do this number, and so that you don't get much moisture there. It's just enough to soften it when you need to work with it. So I work with these pretty much dry, and when you get them like this, they work pretty good. But if you're going to use water, don't use very much, very little water, and because otherwise it'll swell back up, and then you're going to make your cordage and you get all done, and 2 days later it's going to be all dried out, and it's, your cordage is going to look like a DNA chain. It's just going to be all holes in the middle, and everything's too laxed. So this is how you work with the Sinew. It's good to go ahead and practice your grasses first, and then move on to this. You have your grasses, and then if you want to move up, you get into your wood bark fibers, and then this is another step up from that, is the Sinew, and so it's really worth it when you get some. It's really strong, really nice piece. So, but you have to pound them, and then you got to work with them. It takes more talent to actually get those joints to where they're strong. So this is how to do Sinew, and so this is a really good piece. It's very useful, and they used to use this stuff on a lot of things. So go out and practice.